Okay, so here's some more SAT generated questions, but these ones would be advanced according to a search on ChatGPT. Okay, so number one, using the quadratic formula, solve. Well, based on this question, I don't really need to use the quadratic formula because I can just factor by parts, right? So what times what can give me 8? Well, that's 4 and 2. We have a negative symbol here, positive symbol there, so I know my two values will be negative. So we have x minus 4, x minus 2 is equal to 0. So I can therefore say, well, x is going to be 2 and x is going to be 4. So in this case, I don't really need to use a quadratic equation. So look at number 2. Identify the values of k, which the equation, okay, so let's write down the equation, plus 3 is equal to kx, has no solutions. Well, in this case, the only way to get no solutions is if my x values are equal. So in this case, I need k to be 2. Since if I subtract 2x on both sides, I get 0, which will be equal to negative 3, which is obviously not true. So therefore, we can say k needs to be equal to 2 in order for us to have no solution. So k is equal to 2. Okay, let's see. If a substance decays at the rate of 5%, very important, decays, what would be the... Okay, so we have this formula where we can use for decay equations, where we have the final amount, initial amount, and we're going to multiply this with 1 minus the rate of decay, and we're going to raise this to the t power, which is just for time. So we have the initial amount in grams, then we have 1 minus the decay rate to the time, raised to the time. Okay, so let's see, what do they say? After 10 years. Okay, so let's put in our first amount, which is going to be 100. 1 minus, you want to take your r to percentage, from percentage to decimal, so it's going to be 0.05, and we want to raise this to the 10th power. So I'm going to jump on my Casio. 100, 1 minus 0.05, raise this to the 10th power. I get, P will then approximately be 59.87. Okay, so 59.87 grams. Let's look at number 4. Prove that two triangles with the side lengths are not congruent. Okay, where we have 5, 12, 13. And then we have 6, 8, 10. So these sides are not congruent at all. We can clearly see that, since the hypotenuse squared should be equal to one another. In this case, the hypotenuse squared is 100, and in this case, it's 196, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. 13 times 13 is 196. Oh, 169, excuse me. So, no, these triangles are not congruent. Although what we can do is, this doesn't even seem like a right triangle. Let's see, 5 squared. We can use Pythagoras to evaluate this. I already solved, let's do 13 squared. That gives me 25 plus 144 is equal to 169, excuse me. So this is going to be 169 is equal to 169. So that's for triangle. Let's assign triangle A and triangle B. In this case, it's going to be 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to 10 squared. Well, this is definitely going to be 100. 100, 100. Why is that? Because if you know your special triangle 3, 4, 5, we can see that this is a multiple of 3 by multiplying 2, and then multiplying 2. Okay, so you can cut that down, and then we'll see 25, 25, but in this case we'll see 100, 100. So no, these triangles are not congruent, meaning they're not the same side lengths. Okay, let's do number 5. Compare the volume of a cone with a radius of 4 and a height of 9. So let's see. So the volume of a cone, usually in the SATs, all these formulas will be given. But just based on my knowledge, I already know these formulas. There's no real need to memorize them for the SAT since they're all given. Okay, so we have a radius. The radius is what? The radius is 4 squared, so that's 16, times the height, which is 9. So I'm going to use an approximate value because I see there's going to be a decimal. So I'll use an approximate value. So it's going to be 1 over 3 times shift 10x, which gives me pi, times 16 times 9. That gives me 48 pi. Let's use 48 pi, why not? 48 pi, they don't give us any units, so we can just say units cubed. And then for the next one, we have a sphere with a radius of 3. So for a sphere, you have 4/3 pi r cubed. So in that case, I'm going to type it on a calculator quick. So we have 4 over 3 pi r being 3 cubed. So that's 27. One of the 3's just cancel out, so it makes it quite easy. But I'll type the full calculation on the calculator. That gives me 36. 36 pi. Okay, so when we compare the two volumes, we can see, well, this one has a difference of 12. So this one's 12 cubic units bigger than my sphere. What I mean by cancelling one out is if I say 4 over 3, I'm going to move a bit down. If I say 4 over 3 times pi times 3 cubed, in this case it's going to be 3 times 3 times 3, so I can cancel out one of these 3's. This gives me 4 times 9, which is 36. So that's an easy way to calculate if somewhat you're required to do it. Okay, that was number 5. Let's go to number 6. Solve. Oh man, this is quite a big one. So I'll do number 6 over here. Let me see. X cubed minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 8 is equal to 0. Okay. The question is what? Solve for x. Okay. So how do we solve this equation? Well, first things first, I can think of something that's known as the rational zero theorem, one of my favorite theorems. I have a video on that somewhere. But in this case, I can factor by grouping. Since I can see, well, this one can give me x minus 2 and this one can give me x minus 2. So I can factor by grouping. And what this means is I'm going to group these two and I'm going to group these two. If I can somewhat make an identical bracket or parentheses, I can then multiply the two parentheses with one another. Okay, so let's see. So in this case, I'm going to factor with an x squared. I'm left with x minus 2. And on this case, I'm going to factor with a 4. So I'm left with x minus 2 is equal to 0. Therefore, since I have two identical parentheses, I can cancel out one of these parentheses and just take x squared plus 4 and put that in one parentheses. Okay? So it's going to be, this is called factor by grouping. You can go find a video on it. I don't think I have one. So in this case, we can see my first x is equal to 2 since I set the equation equal to 0. And therefore, I can just divide both sides by x squared minus 4 and then anything divided, so it would look like this. Which is just 0. Okay. So for the next one, I'm going to say, well, x squared is equal to negative 4. Therefore, I have then x is equal to plus minus 2i. Since the square root of negative 4 is equal to some imaginary number, we can then say, well, the square root of negative 4, I can take out this negative by replacing it with an I, so it's going to be 2i. And since we're calculating a variable, In this case, my variable can be both negative or positive, right? If you just say the square root of 16, that will simply just give me 4. But if I'm calculating some variable where it's 16, then it's plus minus. Okay, since negative 4 times negative 4 is equal to 16 and 4 times 4 is equal to 16. So we have to use both symbols, positive and negative. Okay, cool. So there's my answers. My answers would be plus minus 2i and negative 4. Let's look at the next one. Okay, I'm going to grab an eraser. Right, what's the next one? Calculate the sine of an angle in a right triangle with an adjacent side of 3 and a hypotenuse is 4. Okay, this one would be better for you to draw it. I think if you're at a very high trigonometrical level, you should know what the answer is, but let's do it. So in this case, I'm going to assign theta over here. It doesn't really matter where you assign theta. Theta is just an angle reference, right? At least for this case. And then we have the hypotenuse is 5, meaning the longest side of the triangle. The adjacent side is 4. We can now see our special triangle I spoke about earlier. So it's going to be 3, 4, 5. So then the answer is calculate sine with an adjacent. Okay, so they actually want sine. So in this case, we can now apply a trigonometrical ratio saying that sine of theta is equal to 4, which is my opposite, over my hypotenuse. And therefore, to get rid of the sine, I'm going to use the inverse function of sine, which gives me 4 over 5. And I believe this should be 60, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's probably not. Let's see. See, even myself, I grab a little calculator for this. Doesn't matter. So our calculators are there. Okay, so it's going to be 50, 51. Or we can say approximately 53. Okay, so that was number 7. Let's look at number 8. Number 8 tells us calculate the standard deviation. Okay, standard deviation is sigma squared is equal to the sum of all values, subtract from the mean, Greek letter mu. Okay, subtract from the mean, and we're going to divide this by n. So this calculation is going to be a bit long, so I might fast forward the time. Okay, first, before we do that, we need to calculate the mean of the data set. Mean, also known as the average, also known as mu, also known as Greek letter u, or Greek letter mu. Okay, so to find the average, simply add all the values, and I divide it by the amount of values I can count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5. So the average is going to be 4 plus 8 plus 12 plus 16 plus 20. We're going to divide this by 5. Perfect, 12. Now to find the standard deviation, however, this xi, if you've watched any of my previous statistics videos, you'll know that this xi simply represents my set over here. So that's x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. Okay? So we're going to say 4 minus 12 squared. I forgot the square. We're going to add this plus 8 minus 12 squared plus 12 minus 12 is 0, so I'm not going to write that one. So it's going to be 16 minus 12 plus. You see, you can do all these little things to save you time in the SATs. And I'm going to divide this over n, which we said was 5. Okay, so let's go find our standard deviation. On my calculator, first I'm going to put a fraction. 4 minus 12 is 8 squared. So I'm going to say 8 squared plus 4 squared plus 4 squared again plus 8 squared. We're going to divide this by 5. So it gives me 32. And then we want to find the square root of 32. Okay? Since my sigma squared, I'm going to square root both sides. So we then find the square root of 32. That gives me a standard deviation of 5.65. Okay, so we found our standard deviation of 5.65. Now the reason I said 4 squared over here is because you can simply just do the calculation, right? So we can say, well, that gives me 8. This one gives me 8 minus 4. Although it's negative 4, we're going to neglect the negative value since we have a positive exponent. If you have a positive exponent, this simply means that all the values inside your parentheses will always be positive. So you can sort of think about an even exponent as an absolute value, right? Not mathematically, but makes perfect sense. Okay, that was number 8. See number 9. Determine the conditions under the equation x3 plus 2y is equal to 6. Okay, time for eraser. Just want to erase some stuff quick. I can't clear the board like I usually do, because if I do that, then it removes the pictures, the images I added as a layer. So, yeah. Okay, let's see. Number 9. Determine the conditions for the equation. So let's solve the equation first. So 3x, let's put number 9 here. 3x plus 2y is equal to 6. We can solve for y on one side. That gives me negative 3x plus 6. Can divide by 2. Y is equal to negative 3x squared plus 3, because I divide right through. And in this situation, we can pretty much say, well, what? They want has infinite solutions. So in this case, to have infinite solutions, we pretty much just need the reciprocal of the x and y values. But we can write it as x would be some element of r somewhere in the data set. But we're looking at the reciprocals of the x and y values. Okay. Number 10 I scratched out because I think number 10 might be a little bit too difficult for the SATs, to be honest. So I replaced it with an easier question. But we'll get to that question lastly. Okay, let's look at the next one. So we have divide x minus 2. X minus 2, here we go. Rational zero theorem, my favorite. First things first. Set this equal to 0. Set your x minus 2 equal to 0. That gives me x is equal to 2. Now, next thing you're going to do is you're going to draw this box. I first need to see if I remember this. Now, we want to put our 2 that we found, we want to put it over here. Then we have our coefficients, which we're going to put over here. Our coefficients of our equation. So it's 1, 2, 5, and 7. Negative 5 and 6. We want to bring this value down. So it's 1. Then you want to say, well, 2 multiply 1 gives me 2. You want to add these two together. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Then you want to say 2 times 4 gives me 8. You want to add these ones together. That gives me 3. And then 2 times 2 is 6. But if I add them together, it gives me 12. So I have some remainder. Let me have a double look. Let me have a look here. Negative 5. 2 times 2 is 4. That gives me 4. Minus 5 plus 8 gives me 3. So I find the remainder of 6. I could be mistaken, however. I could be mistaken. Because I'm assuming there won't be any remainder. Well, if that's the case, I have my new polynomial equation, which is going to be x squared plus 4x plus 3. And since I found some remainder, I can say plus 12, and I'm going to divide this by my original equation. So this would then be my final answer. But I think I can't see any mistakes I made though. Aish. No, I don't have. Let's see. 1, 2, -5, 6. So it's going to be 2, bring down, 2, 4, bring down. Yeah, I don't find any mistakes. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. If I did make a mistake, I'll correct it later. I don't think there's any mistakes though, however. I could be wrong, but it's fine. Let's get the next one. So I have number 12, solving log problems. Ooh, my favorite. So log sub 2, x plus log sub 2, 8 is equal to 4. Okay, so you need to know some log properties here to solve this one. If we see an addition of log properties, it means multiply. So log 2, which means these terms multiply. So it's going to be 8x is equal to 4. And now when it comes to logs, you have your base, answer, exponent. So this one would be considered the base. This one's the answer. This one's the exponent. So you can rewrite it in that form: base, answer, or base exponent, and then your answer. So we can then say, well, 16 is equal to 8x. So therefore, to satisfy this equation, x is going to have to be 2. That would be the answer for number 12. That makes sense as well. Okay, sketching a function. Sketching. Well, if we want to sketch this one, it would have the vertices 2 and 2 and let's see, 2 and 3. So it would be at some point and then we'd go up. What an odd question. Okay, let's skip that one. I definitely don't think they'll ask you to graph a absolute value quadratic function in the SATs. But it would look something like that. Since whenever you see these absolute signs or these bars, it's called bars, you know that at some point all your values will be positive in either direction. You always go up. Okay? So, or the modulus. Find the product of 3 plus 2i. Okay, we're working with some complex numbers now. Then we have 3 plus 2i. When they say find the product, they just mean to multiply these two values. Okay, so we're going to have 3 times 2, which is 12. Negative 15i plus 8i minus 10i squared. Now, where you see this I squared, we can substitute the I squared with a negative 1. Okay, it's one of the properties of complex numbers. So we have 12 plus 10, since negative 10 times negative 1 is 12. And you have 15 minus 8, which is negative 7i. So we have 22 minus 7i. Okay, 22 minus 7i is my final answer. Ooh, probability. Let's see. If a probability of event A and that of event B is 0.6, find the probability of both A and B. Okay, probability of AND. When you see the word AND in probability, it refers to multiply your two options. And when you see a probability of OR, it's adding. So in this case, we want the probability of A and B. So therefore, we can say A and B is multiplication. So it's going to be 0.3 times 0.6, which is therefore 0.18. Okay, so we have a 0.18 probability, or we can rewrite this in percentage, saying 18%. Multiplying 100, move the decimals 2 times to the right. Okay, so final question. A circle has a center at the origin 0, 0 of a coordinate plane. And a line passing through the points, it intersects at 2 points. If the radius of the circle is 5, find the equation of the line. So I was looking at this question a little bit earlier when it was generated. And what I noticed was, well, this is a trick question because you don't even need to use any of this information to solve this. Let me show you. You don't need this. You don't need this either. You just need this, a line passing, because they say find the equation of the line, not find the equation of the circle. If it was finding the equation of a circle, it has a radius of 5. So an equation of a circle looks like this. X squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. So in that case, we can just substitute for r, which is then going to be 25, since the radius is 5. Also, the graph crosses at the origin. Okay, it starts at the origin. There's a center point, meaning it's 0.5555. So that's my circle. Anyway, so let's go down. Let's write these points. We have a point 3, 3, 4, and 6 and 8. Okay, so final question. Let's go. This one's number 10. So first things first, we need to find the slope. Okay, since we have a straight line passing through 2 points, we can calculate the slope, which is the change in y over the change in x. We therefore have 8 minus 4, since it's y2 minus y1, over 6 minus 3, which is going to be 4 over 3. Oh man, what an odd slope. Now what you can do with the slope then is we can write, we know our slope-intercept form is equal to y is equal to mx plus b. Depends where you grew up. If you grew up in America, it's b. If you grew up in South Africa, it's c. If you grew up in China, it's also c. And Europe, and in Russia, I think it's f, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, let's go. So we have y. Oh, since we have a set of coordinates now, we can simply just substitute. We can substitute one pair of coordinates. So m, we calculated as 3 over 4. So if you're given two coordinates and you need to find the equation of the line, you first want to calculate the slope, and then you want to substitute one coordinate pair into your slope. Okay, so 3 over 4 times 3 plus b. In this case, you have 12 over 3, which is 4. Wow, what an odd equation. So it's going to be b is equal to 0. So my line is y is equal to mx plus b. And in this case, I just solved b. So it's going to be 3 over 4x. Let's see if this is true. Because I don't know. I have a feeling it might not be true. Maybe I made a mistake. There's one way to do this. We can test. Testing means if you input your coordinates, it should be equal left and right. So I'm going to use the second set. So y is going to be equal then to 4 over 3x. X is 6. Okay, so we have 24 divided by 3. 24 can be split up into 8 times 3. So we have 8 is in fact equal to 8. Okay, so my equation's right. Just want to see this one again quick. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong in this case. Anyway, I hope that helps you for the SAT preparations. If you need any more help with anything, you can leave a comment in the comment section. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely one.